In this lesson, we'll write our very first piece of code using object-oriented programming. Start by navigating to repl.it/languages/python3. I suggest pausing the video here and creating an account if you haven't already. Whereas you can code without an account allows you to save your code. Then, I suggest placing your Skillshare and repl.it windows side by side as shown here. That way, you can code along with me. First up is defining your first class. Here is how. Any character in black is required. It must be typed exactly that way. We start off with the class keyword in black. Then we add the class name denoted in blue. Like many other Python concepts you've learned, add a colon. Then add 2 spaces, and for now, use pass. Pass is just a placeholder for other code we will write later. Let's code this now. In this lesson, we'll create an ice cream class. Let's use the format we see on the left. Type in class ice cream, hit colon, and once you type enter, repl.it will automatically create 2 spaces for you. Now type in pass, and I'm going to hit escape to dismiss this modal. And that's it for your very first class. Let's use this class now to create an instance. We call this process of creating an instance from a class instantiation. Here's how to instantiate. Instantiation is really only the right half of this format. Type the class name in blue, then add 2 parentheses, and that's all you need to instantiate. We'll also assign this instance on the right to a variable on the left. So just like with defining any other variable, we have the variable name in pink on the left, a black equal sign with optional spaces, and then the value. In this case, the value is the instance. Let's code this now. Before starting, make sure to run your file by hitting Run, the green arrow at the top. Next, we'll use the interactive prompt to test our code. Your interactive prompt may be on the right-hand side of your screen. I've changed the layout so that mine is on the bottom. First, type your variable name, and then instantiate, type in your class name and the parentheses. Let's now see what the variable ice cream contains, and it contains our instance or our object. The next concept is a method. We'll now add an action or behavior to our class. This is what we have so far. To add a method, we simply define a function inside the class. This should look familiar. The def keyword we've seen before. We use def to define functions as well. The only difference is that our first argument to the method must be self, denoted in black here. Here we have the method name in blue, the method contents in orange, and spaces in gray. Let's code this now. Inside of your editor, we're going to now delete this pass and add the eat method. So def eat self colon, just like we see on the left-hand side. And now we're going to type in print, and I'm going to write yum, and that's it for defining your eat method. Let's now test or use this method. To test or use this method, use the dot expressions we covered in the Python for Beginners course. Type the instance variable name, which is ice in our example. Add a dot shown in black, then add the method name in blue. Finally, use 2 parentheses to actually call the method, just like we call functions. Let's code this now. Again, don't forget to run the file by clicking on the green arrow. First, instantiate. So ice cream equals ice cream with parentheses. Then call the eat method. We'll use the template on the left-hand side. Ice cream, our variable name, dot eat. And hit enter, and we get yum, which is our print statement in the body of the eat method. Now we introduce a concept called the constructor. The code in the constructor is run when the class is instantiated. Let me show you by example. Here's an example constructor. Notice that the first line is all black. You must copy that exactly for now. As always, you can place whatever code you want in orange in the body of the method. Here, our constructor simply prints hi. Let's code this now. We're going to add a constructor to our ice cream class. Here we'll have def init self colon, just like we see on the left-hand side there, and then we're going to print something memorable. In this case, we'll say print created ice cream. And I'm going to add a blank line here just to keep our code clean and readable. Again, run your file by hitting the green arrow. We're now going to instantiate our ice cream class. Ice cream equals to ice cream. And here you can see created ice cream. Now for our final concept, an attribute. Assigning an attribute is very similar to defining a variable. Here we have the attribute name in pink and the value in orange. Notice, however, that we have the self dot in black. This is important. This is how we attach the attribute to the current ice instance. Self will always refer to the current instance. Let's code this now. Delete the contents of our constructor, and instead, we're going to add self.scoops equals to 3. This assigns the number of scoops to 3. Let's test this. Run your file by clicking on the green arrow at the very top. Then instantiate your ice cream class. And check the number of scoops. Here we'll have the instance dot scoops. And here we have 3, as expected. So, that wasn't the last part of the lesson. We actually have 2 more snippets of code to review. Let's change our eat method to account for the number of scoops eaten. This was our previous method definition, with the method name in blue and the method contents in orange. Now we add an argument in green. We can then use that green input argument, in this case y, in our method. Here we use y to compute y times y. We also have the method name in blue, the method contents in orange, and spaces. Let's code this now. In our eat method, we'll add an input argument called scoops. This will allow the ice cream user to eat however many scoops they like at once. Now, let's update the number of scoops that the ice cream has left. Instead of print yum, add self.scoops equals to the original total, but minus the number of scoops we wish to eat. I'm also going to introduce another way of writing this line of code that is a lot shorter. We can also replace this with self.scoops minus equals scoops. And these 2 lines are exactly the same. So I'm going to delete the first one here. This line says, decrease the number of scoops by the number of scoops we wish to eat. Let's review how to call a method. From left to right, we have the instance variable name in pink, a dot, and the method name in blue. Then the input argument in green. Let's try this now. Go ahead and click on the green button at the very top to run your file. Then type in ice cream equals ice cream. That instantiates. Then we're going to check how many scoops are currently contained, which are 3. Then we're going to eat, or call the eat method, with the argument 2, as we see on the left-hand side. This will eat 2 scoops, and let's check how many scoops are left. We have 1 scoop, as expected. And that concludes our fundamentals for writing object-oriented programming code. For a copy of these slides and the finished code for this lesson, make sure to check out the course website. You may be thinking, holy cow, there's a lot of new terms. That's pretty overwhelming. If that's you, don't worry. I was there too at some point. Feel free to skip to the next lesson, which is practice, to continue to build familiarity with these OOP terms. Alternatively, if you're interested in some challenging bonus practice problems, continue the lesson. Now on to our bonus section, practice. Let's practice using the terminology in this lesson by adding 2 more code snippets. First, to review. This eat method takes in a scoop argument and subtracts that many scoops from the total number of scoops. Now, to practice, create a method called add that takes in a scoops argument and adds that many scoops to the total. Pause the video here and try this now. If you don't know where to start, that's okay. You'll get this with more repetition. Alright, let's now write the method add. Right underneath our eat method, we will define add. Again, the first argument is always self. Then add the scoops argument. We should then add that number of scoops to the total. And this concludes our add method. Let's practice another one. This will test your knowledge from the Python Coding 101 class. Time to review if statements if you've forgotten them. In the eat method, check if the number of scoops left is less than the number of scoops the user is trying to eat. If so, print not enough bites left. If not, deduct the number of scoops from the total as usual. Again, pause the video here to try. And if you don't know how to do this, don't worry. With more practice will come more familiarity. Now, let's augment our eat method. We're going to check if the number of scoops is less than the number of scoops the user is trying to eat. If so, print not enough bites left. And otherwise, deduct the number of scoops in total as usual. And that concludes our augmented eat method. And that's it for this lesson. Again, in the next lesson, we'll have some practice to continue to build familiarity with these OOP terms.